Thanks so much for joining us today on Feeling Good. I'm your host, Shelley Abrams, and once again, we welcome all of you, and we give special thanks to our sponsor, Warren County Community Services, for supporting our Feeling Good segment that we record every month. And today, I am delighted to introduce to you our guest, Bob Viney, who is a guest who has visited us in the past. I think it was just about a year ago I interviewed Bob over at Miami University in Middletown when there was a Vietnam memorial ceremony, and veterans from Vietnam conflict were highlighted at that time, and I interviewed Bob because of his background. And today I have invited Bob to join us again for another very compelling project that he is involved with. And I welcome you once again to Feeling Good, Bob.
Thanks, Shelley. Good to be here.
And I just wanted to preface our discussion about this new project by saying that recently I have had conversations with friends of mine who are talking about turning into their 70s, and what does that mean to them? And I mentioned the concept of super agers. And I noticed on the front cover of the art magazine a month or so ago that we are living in a time when it is probably the best time to be a super ager. And I explain that by saying that those of us who have retired from our professional responsibilities and positions in our careers now find even more time to devote to passions or projects that focus on those areas that we maybe have always wanted to discuss and highlight. And as a result, I ask you today, what is this passion project that we are going to discuss today?
Well, today we're going to talk about the building of a new memorial, patriotic memorial in the greater Cincinnati area. Some people may be remembering that about a decade ago, we actually brought pieces of the USS Cincinnati, which was a fast-attack nuclear submarine that served during the Cold War era and was decommissioned in the mid-90s, about 97, I think, and was eventually scrapped by the Navy as part of the anticipated peace dividend after the end of the Cold War, when the Soviet Union basically dissolved itself. And we thought that having pieces of the Cincinnati as a memorial to those veterans from the greater Cincinnati area that served during the Cold War would be an appropriate civic icon. Throughout the greater Cincinnati area, there's really no large place where people can gather on patriotic holidays. There's fireworks in many places around town, but there's no civic icon, if you will, that memorializes the service of veterans on Veterans Day or Memorial Day. Almost every township has some kind of a veteran memorial. But we thought that the USS Cincinnati could be the gathering place for people to come and share thanks to people who served during the Cold War era, which, if we remember, lasted from the end of the Second World War in 1947, 48 until 97, 98, which was when the Soviet Union dissolved. So 50 years of service, 50 years of national investments in equipment like the USS Cincinnati and others in order to protect global security and protect our freedoms and our liberty during that period.
So you refer to we in your comments. Who are the we people behind this whole project? Because it takes more than just a few, doesn't it?
Well, it's certainly going to take more than just a few to implement the vision. But the vision really started with Joe Japp, who's a veteran from the Cold War, served on nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, cruiser, and submarine. Came back to Cincinnati, worked at Fernald, and then went to law school and has been a practicing lawyer in Greater Cincinnati, for a long time. And Joe started 20 years ago when the USS Cincinnati was first decommissioned and was just sitting waiting to be scrapped. And he actually had the vision of a memorial that would also be a museum, because there's so many topics related to science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM topics that we hear about today, that are represented by the operation of a nuclear submarine. So Joe's initial request to the Navy was, give us the whole ship. Let us bring it down or bring it up the Mississippi, and we'll anchor it permanently at the banks. And the Navy turned that down for security, too many secret aspects of how a submarine is built and operates that they didn't want to give away the whole submarine. But they said, we'll give you pieces. So through Todd Portune at Hamilton County trustees, commissioners, we were able to request and gain approval to receive certain pieces from the ship as it was scrapped. And we're going to use those to build a full-size replica so that people get a sense of the size and scope of what was involved in operating and serving on a nuclear submarine during those days of the Cold War.
Well, and you would certainly know that because of your background at the Naval Academy, where, by the way, I did purchase my headband and felt like it was appropriate because it's a chilly day today to wear my Naval Academy headband. And you also have your USNA sweatshirt on today as well. But tell folks more about the silent service of submariners.
Well, I came to volunteer for the submarine service naturally, having grown up as the son of a naval submarine officer. My dad was a commanding officer of a World War II submarine when I was in 5th and 6th grade. So it was kind of, as I was growing up, was always part of having Dad go to sea, on a submarine. and he made Cold War patrols in the 50s in the same areas where I made Cold War patrols in the 70s, aboard a totally different kind of ship. In 20 years, the technology totally changed in the submarine force, from diesel-electric boats that could only stay down for a few number of hours to a nuclear submarine that could basically stay underwater and operate at full power for a decade, if it weren't for the fact that the crew needed to have food.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
we could make our own oxygen from seawater. So it was not an issue of we didn't have enough water to drink or air to breathe. It was just that we couldn't load enough food for more than about 70 to 90 days.
Well, when people, and they do refer to folks that serve on submarines as the silent service. Why so?
Well, submarines basically can remain undetected. So if you have you think about our nuclear deterrent during the Cold War and even continuing into today, all of our land-based silos and air bases where bombers are based are pretty well, known. Hard to hide them for 50 years. Mm-hmm. And if we needed to deter an attack, the weapons would have to travel thousands and thousands of miles, to get to where the launch sites of our enemies are. But a submarine could be 20 miles, 30 miles away, mm-hmm. And unknown. They don't know where the location is. They don't know exactly from where the attack could come, and that really is quite a deterrent. And the fast attack nuclear submarines like the USS Cincinnati and the one that I served on don't carry nuclear ballistic missiles. Our purpose was to defend against the nuclear submarines and the surface ships of our enemy's navy. So we trained differently. We went different places. We had very different missions. But together, that submarine force represents the front line of defending our nation, defending global peace and security, and defending our liberty.
Well, and you mentioned peace, and I was going to bring that up, all in the name of peacekeeping.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. We don't have the military force we have now to conquer other nations. We have it to maintain peace. And of course, 2 world wars within 30 years of each other showed us that if we wanted our liberty to be protected, and our liberty is protected when there's peace in the world, mm-hmm. The best, then we had to have a deterrent against the warring tendencies of others. Just, look at what's going on in the news today with right. Russia and Ukraine and Israel and the Middle East. And I guess the ongoing threat of China and Taiwan. We're not out of the woods when it comes to nations wanting to use war to exert their intentions of expanding their own sphere of influence or their empires. Mm-hmm. And that's not what we're about. We're about protecting global peace and security, and we have to have a strong military in order to do that. But that's the purpose. When you hear about the investments we make in our military, when the budget discussions come up,
right.
That's a peace investment under the title of a military investment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, submarines in general are fascinating to me just because I had so much to learn and continue to learn about the makeup of submarines, submariners who serve on submarines, and all the science behind the operations and so forth. So let's start with the fact that you started to look for locations for this memorial at the banks,
Right.
and that did not work out. And it was like over the years, the pieces of the submarine arrived.
Well, let's take a look at what arrived.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do it.
So this is a mock-up of the memorial
Okay.
that's going to be built on the grounds of the Voice of America National Broadcast Museum in Westchester.
Mm-hmm.
It's off Tylersville Road, basically adjacent to the county line between Butler and Warren counties.
Right.
So you see it's a full-size replica, 330 feet long. So basically goalpost to goalpost, if you put this in Paul Brown Stadium,
Okay.
it would be goalpost to goalpost. The sail area here is the actual sail from the USS Cincinnati. The forward control planes, we call the Fairwater planes, are mounted on the sail in this class submarine. Those are the actual Fairwater planes. And the rudder at the stern is the actual upper rudder. There's actually, this is 17 feet tall. There's actually on the ship a lower rudder. So the total rudder is over 30 feet. But obviously the lower rudder would be underwater. So
Right.
our goal was to have a replica that from the distance would look like there's a submarine sitting there. But as you get closer, you're able to walk underneath it so you can feel like you're walking through a deck in the submarine, and we're going to have informational displays and exhibits that will tell people where they are, what's taking place here. Some artifacts. For example, we hope to have a periscope under here, which is where the control room would normally be, so that kids and people could actually see out the periscope.
Okay.
The control room panels, we're hoping to get this, I don't know where, this red spot here, which probably doesn't show up very well, is the actual backup emergency power supply. So if the reactor shuts down, we have a diesel generator that we can start up and provide emergency backup power for the ship. And because the Cincinnati was built in 1976 and 1977, most people will remember that there was a pretty amazing team representing the city of Cincinnati in that era called the Big Red Machine,
Right.
the Cincinnati Reds.
Right.
And so they painted the diesel generator red, and throughout the life of the ship, it was referred to as the Big Red Machine.
Very cool.
So those pieces actually arrived in Cincinnati about 10 years ago. And we had an arrival greeting ceremony on Joe Nuxall Way, right next to the Red Stadium. And Phil Castellini was there and represented the Reds, and people were there to represent the city. And we had veterans there, some of whom had served on the USS Cincinnati in operation. And we were hoping to get a spot on the banks. But over 10 years, there were other ideas for how to utilize the space there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was about 2 years ago, we started realizing that we needed a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at the museum center in Cincinnati, and they were very interested. But being a historic site, because of the old train station,
Right.
we couldn't put something as new and different as a full-size replica of the USS Cincinnati on that ground. So we always had the Voice of America in our background. There's a lot of land there for people who have been there, but we didn't have any contacts. Neither Joe Japp nor myself, who are kind of the two people most involved with the background support of a group called the Submarine Veterans of Cincinnati.
Okay.
None of us had any contacts there, but gratefully, you knew the executive director through your involvement in the region for years.
Right.
And when we first presented the project to Jack Dominic, he was very supportive of it. And then he introduced us to the Westchester Township and the Butler Metro Parks organizations, so we made separate presentations. They were very interested. We've worked with Joe Hinson in the Think Regional program
Right.
for several years, so we presented it to his Chamber of Commerce staff, and they were very interested. So the reception has been very positive and very gratifying. That the leadership within the business community, the nonprofit community, the political community in Westchester and Butler County has been so supportive. So we started moving forward with plans, and we're fortunate to have had an anonymous benefactor from Cincinnati
Mm-hmm.
who has funded all of our activities for more than a decade. And so we presented the location to him. He visited it. He thought it was very appropriate, great idea. Being next to an athletic complex where the metro parks are, this whole area here, as people know, is athletic fields.
Right.
I don't know, there must be about 20 where there's major soccer tournaments and field hockey, and I guess they're starting with lacrosse.
Well, and that whole and all that acreage is Voice of America related.
Well, it was, yes,
I mean, under under the umbrella of folks that have lived here for decades. Remember the Voice of America towers.
Sure, towers all
so
over
forth.
this area.
Right.
So let's see, where was I?
So just talking about the location near the athletic fields is going to make it very visible to the families that are visiting
and the kids.
cheering on,
Yep.
yes, and the teams in
Right.
between games
Yeah,
and so on.
if you're there on a Saturday in the summer and you have a tournament at 10 and a tournament at 3,
Right.
well, hopefully we're going to get a lot of the kids to come over here and spend an hour or so checking out the science, technology, engineering, and math. And that's always been our purpose, is to not only be a memorial to honor the service and the commitment that gave us peace and security for 50 years, and the people from Cincinnati that were involved in that, and not only the people but the organizations.
Mm-hmm.
The nuclear power plant for the USS Cincinnati was built by General Electric, their nuclear power division. So everybody knows General Electric has a big presence here.
Right.
Although it's not the nuclear power group, it's the overarching company.
Right.
And groups like Fernald and General Tool and many other small, mid-sized companies in the region were involved and still are involved in supporting that peacekeeping activity.
I bet as you've been discussing it with different groups and the word spreads and so forth, that you hear more and more and more stories, don't you, from former submariners, from folks that actually have young people involved as submariners and involved in the Navy now. I can think of a couple right now that have told us how delighted they are because their youngsters are involved currently. So you get a whole intergenerational discussion going, don't you?
Well, certainly one of the things we hope to do during the summers is hold programs at the memorial where kids would be invited to come and spend a day or a couple of days with docents who are volunteers from the submarine veterans and other people who have experience, who actually served on submarines, and come and talk to the kids about their experiences. We also are planning to build an educational center in this area,
okay,
which will have some hands-on activities where we can take the kids in and actually go through some hands-on activities to demonstrate the science and technology and engineering and the math behind how does the submarine go up and down? How does the nuclear power plant work? How do you
make oxygen, right?
Yeah, how do you make oxygen?
Breathe,
exactly,
right?
so that you breathe. You can breathe underwater.
Well, I'm noticing, and we haven't really mentioned it yet, the location is adjacent not only to the athletic grounds, but also to a fairly large water retention area.
Yeah, that's an existing water retention pond. I think the water is mostly used, obviously flood control, but I think it's mostly used for irrigation of all the grounds around here. And yeah, the design that our design company, McGill Smith Punchon, came up with includes a pier. So when you're looking at the area from across on the fields, you see water, a pier, and a submarine. And that's probably going to attract some attention because the top of the sail is going to be over 30 feet tall.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So it's going to be very visible across this area.
And probably illuminated as well, right? I mean, with some lighting and so forth.
But the park's not open at night.
Right.
So.
But I mean, yes, people will. It'll be an eye catcher.
Right. But the pier also is an area that can be used for public events. So if you've ever gone to a 4th of July event on the grounds of the VOA, there's almost no shade. So the submarine provides shade, and there are areas where people could sit. A band could be up here, a speaker could be up here. So this becomes not only a memorial to visit for an hour and go away, but it becomes a civic place for celebrations, for holidays, and other major community gathering events.
Right. And do I also notice in the foreground there some...
A splash pad?
Yes.
Yes. This is also going to be tied to what does a submarine do when it submerges?
Okay.
Because we'll see when we look at the video that there's vents all along the the top of the submarine, fore and aft, that open to release air that's in the ballast tanks. And as the air escapes, it's very high pressure. It's over 4,000 pounds per square inch of pressure. It goes through the water and makes water spouts. So we will be able to simulate that. Some of this water that's going down will actually shoot up.
Right.
And we hope to have a diving alarm where the kids can actually push the diving alarm, hear the sound of it, and see the water spouts.
Very
So
cool.
Just one of the hands-on things that we hope to
Right.
establish here.
Well, I know that you made a trip to Groton, Connecticut, where actually was the first opportunity I ever had to tour the Nautilus that is, right there at the museum in Groton. And I have to say that it was an eye-opener for me to actually see the submarine in person, actually board the submarine and so forth. But you got quite a reception, didn't you, when you visited Groton?
Yeah, there are many, because a lot of the submarines from the Cold War area were named for cities and states, such as the USS Cincinnati, and the USS Ohio is still at sea. That's a ballistic missile submarine. So many cities have taken the sail and put it on a concrete slab and as a memorial to the ship that was named for that city that served the country, right, in peace and securing peace. And we decided we wanted to go beyond that because it's hard to do any kind of education about what was the Cold War, why did we fight it, how did we win, how do we maintain peace in the world, how does a submarine operate. If we don't engage kids at an early age in being interested in science, technology, engineering, and math, we're going to fall behind in the areas of technology that we've always been leaders in. And so that's a key purpose of what our design goals were, was to have something that's going to almost be awe-inspiring. And wow, imagine I could learn this science, or I could learn this technology.
Right, right.
And we've talked to some of the technical schools, Butler Tech, et cetera, about, they have welding programs where they're teaching kids skilled trades, AC, plumbing, auto, and you can't work in an auto at an auto repair place if you don't understand the science of computers.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So we have an opportunity to partner with them during the construction and after, and encourage kids not only to think about college paths from science, technology, engineering, and math, but skilled trades, which is another path to a very valuable service to the community, to the country, but also a great path to a middle-class lifestyle for those who choose that instead of going to college.
And it really complements the VOA Museum, doesn't it? The VOA Broadcasting Museum, which you gave me credit for introducing you to Jack Dominic. I give Miami University Institute of Learning and Retirement classes and tours credit for offering the opportunity for me to go on tour, to hear Jack speak in our classes, and for me to even learn what I learned about the Voice of America Broadcasting Museum, the connection with the Crosleys and WLW and so forth. So it's been a collaboration over several years, and keeping those connections, that when this project came around, it just seemed to be the right time, right place, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And actually, we think this is a much better place for the memorial than the banks would be. The tie-in to the Voice of America is really an important one, because the Voice of America played a huge role in the winning of the Cold War. And if people listening to the program have not gone out on a Saturday or a Sunday to visit the Voice of America museum, they should absolutely make a commitment to do so.
Right.
Because you will learn so much about the role that the Voice of America and Westchester and Greater Cincinnati played in ensuring that truth was making its way behind the Iron Curtain, and actually into Germany during World War II, and how stories of how that impacted so many people in who were living through very, very dark periods. So I always think about, the two ways we won the Cold War were by our participation in building and sustaining hope that the dark period people went through behind the Iron Curtain was maybe not going to be sustained. That there was another avenue. There was a ray of hope, if you will, that the Voice of America provided, and the persistence of our country in maintaining a strong enough military to prevent a third world war during the period of the Cold War. And so the two of them being together is really going to make it not just a place where people will come and visit once, but a place where people will hopefully be motivated to come and visit many times, and be proud of what America did during that period,
Right.
and what we continue to do.
Right, exactly. Well, I know that you have a website. Would you like to let people know about the website, if they have questions, if they would like to donate, etc.? Just give us some contact information, and maybe we can actually view the website, give everyone a little preview if our laptop works here this morning. But nonetheless, the website is what?
Well, the website will be operational at the time this airs.
Okay.
It's not operational today.
Okay.
But you and I can talk about it, and through the magic of television,
Yes.
we will integrate this in so the viewers can see what we see without having to be close enough. But when people do go to the website, they will see the benefits for the community. They will see a little bit of the history of the USS Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be able to explore the park site. They'll learn a little bit about the STEM education,
Mm-hmm.
Events that will be hosted at the site, and then a little bit about our organization. The organization, we have a nonprofit. It's called the Submarine Cincinnati Memorial Association. And as I said, we've raised funds from our anonymous donor, his family's generosity, for the construction. But we still need to raise some funds for two other purposes. One is we need to have an endowment that will fund on an ongoing basis the maintenance and upkeep of the memorial. The goal that we had from the beginning was no taxpayer money involved. This is a gift from those of us who served and people who donate to us to the greater Cincinnati area. So we need to raise about $1 million in the endowment fund.
Okay.
We also, when we open in April, through the construction fund, we'll have an initial level of exhibits and displays. We want to enhance that. We want to add in software, digital QR code, where people can walk through the memorial and hold their phone up to QR codes at the various places in the submarine and see videos and narrated stories of what takes place, even if it's not an event where we have a real live person there to tell somebody.
Right.
So we're gonna target about $2 million. We've talked to several people who are professionals in museum quality displays and exhibits, and that's their suggested budget for what we want to do.
Okay.
So the programs will be announced at our public announcement in February about how the public can participate in making contributions
Okay. Very good.
to that. So there's the donate button. So the parts of it, the website, so these are the benefits to the community, and we've kind of talked about these.
Right.
That we're going to honor the USS Cincinnati and its Cold War service and the people who served, recognize the greater Cincinnati area contributions to the Cold War, educate about the Cold War history and the outcome, create a landmark civic icon that can be used all year round, community resource and for recreation events, excite youngsters with submarine and broadcast related STEM activities. So those are what the site is going to be about. A little bit of the history behind the USS Cincinnati, how it was launched, who from the city was involved in sponsoring it.
Okay.
The Keating family was the sponsor
Okay.
for the ship when it was commissioned and launched. Some of the accomplishments that it had, exploring the park. These are our partners and renditions of the park. And then the STEM education.
This was when you approach different groups and tell them what you have in mind. It's quite you get quite a reaction of amazement and excitement, don't you?
Well, there's nothing like it anywhere in the country.
Right.
I mean, as the director of the Groton Submarine Museum and the Nautilus said, this will be the best submarine museum or memorial in the country after that one. There's nothing that any city has ever done that is this extensive and comprehensive. And of course, nobody can tie into the Voice of America,
Right.
For the Cold War history. So let's take a look at the video that kind of summarizes in 3 minutes
Okay.
everything that is involved here.
In the ship is rigged for dive. Request permission to submerge the ship. Dive, dive, I want to see. Dive.
The USS Cincinnati Cold War Memorial Peace Pavilion commemorates the peaceful conclusion of the Cold War, honors the service of our city's namesake, the nuclear-powered submarine USS Cincinnati, which was a stalwart guardian of national security during the Cold War era, and symbolizes a commitment and investment our nation made towards peace during 50 years of Cold War conflict and dangerous uncertainty. Commissioned in 1978, USS Cincinnati served through the dissolution of the Soviet Union, which peacefully ended the Cold War. The USS Cincinnati Cold War Memorial Peace Pavilion will serve as a tribute to all of our military veterans, as well as the contributions of Cincinnatians and Cincinnati companies towards our national defense during the era that successfully ended the Cold War.
I feel as if this ship belongs to you as well as us, because you come from the city.
Nestled within the historic Voice of America Park in Westchester, just a short drive north of downtown Cincinnati, this isn't just a memorial. It's an impressive civic icon and valuable asset to the community. As children and families enter the memorial, they will experience the awesome and amazing sight of a full-size replica of the USS Cincinnati. The children are astounded by the complexity of a nuclear-powered submarine and the bravery of those who silently served under the sea. And visitors are reminded that freedom isn't free. A place to celebrate the past, navigate the present, and chart a course for generations to come. Exciting youngsters to opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and math, embodied in a modern nuclear-powered submarine. With private construction funding already identified, we now are raising a capital and endowment fund that will complete and then maintain and enhance this impressive memorial, featuring unique submarine artifacts and fuel educational programs and exhibits for eager minds to explore the range of technology and the depths of history represented by one of the most complex machines ever built. Join us in our mission to preserve history and set sail toward a brighter future.
From the USS Cincinnati! From the USS Cincinnati!
Together, we'll ensure the USS Cincinnati Cold War Memorial Peace Pavilion remains a place of honor and a salute to America's heroes.
And of course, it ends with our slogan, which is peace is our purpose. And that will be a major part of everything that we're about here.
Well, on that note, I would say that you, as well as a number of other retired individuals, as well as
some of them are in other careers,
and certainly others who are working in this project and still fully involved with their profession as well.
right?
You're actually seeing your passion come to life. And I think that as we talk about passion projects throughout the year here on Feelin' Good, I think this is a wonderful way to kick off that theme because I think more people in our audience certainly will be interested maybe in getting involved as a donor, as a visitor, or even have more ideas of their own to consider, mulling those ideas over with others who have common purpose. Because certainly this has taken, at least
10 years since the pieces of the USS Cincinnati arrived.
Right.
And Joe Japp and I were remarking about how for about 8 years, all we did was go around trying to convince other people of the vision and that it was worthwhile joining us and getting behind.
Right.
And now that we have the funding and we have the support of the community, now we have to deliver.
Right, exactly.
And it's been a lot busier with all the details, taking all of the vision thinking that had gone on for almost a decade and saying, now how do we make it happen?
Right.
Within the budget that we have available. So you're right. It's a passion. It's a labor of love. It's a commitment, and basically, I can't think of a better way that I will personally have given back to others, and leverage the advantages and the benefits that I had of the honor of serving, than to share what that service has meant to me, what it was meant to so many others. And hopefully that continues the process because, in a really larger sense, without citizen commitment to service, we don't have a democracy.
Well, that's quite a legacy, I would say. And on that note, thank you so much for
Thank you for hosting us.
Spending this time sharing the USS Cincinnati Cold War Memorial Peace Pavilion. And we hope that you place the groundbreaking in March 2024 on your calendar, or at least read about the groundbreaking, and then the ribbon cutting in April 2025. And on that note, we will see you soon. Bye for now.